All right, well, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich, here with Bob Rose. How you doing tonight, Bob?
I'm good, Alan. I brought my shine box. I'm ready to go.
Oh, here
How
we
are
go.
you?
Here we go. I'm good, man. I'm good. It's
Well,
funny. Funny how? How is this the way I talk? That's funny.
yeah, folks. Playing the role of Polly tonight will be Alan. Me being the Italian. I guess I can be Joe Pesci's Tommy DeVito character. Playing the role of sniveling snitch. Henry Hill will be Garrett Carr, of course.
Yes, and I think the Saints fans want to be Tommy DeVito and Derek Carr be Spider. You know,
Yeah.
Hey, you gonna take that? That's one of those movies that I don't care where you are in the film. If it comes on, you're gonna stop and watch.
Yeah.
Because it's one great scene after another. It really is. There is no really slow or low spot where you're just like, I don't need to see anymore. I saw the best part.
No, Casino. Really... Casino was equally great, but Casino had a couple down periods where you could, run and microwave something to eat or get a drink out of the fridge or something like that. Goodfellas, like you said, and I've probably watched that movie 50 times, no matter where it is in the film, even if it's on regular TV where I know all the good stuff is going to be bleeped out, I'll still sit down and watch it.
I was in Barnes and Noble. I guess about 3 years ago, and it was in the $5 bin, the DVD. $4 bin. I'm like, hell yes, I'm buying this right now. So, and it's on 2 DVDs. I forget about how long that film is too, but it's just it really is. It's one of my top. If you look at mobster movies, that's probably in my top 3. I would put Godfather 2, Godfather, and then Goodfellas as my top 3. I put Godfather 2 ahead of Godfather because the back history is so good.
Yeah.
It's I enjoy Godfather. There's a lot in that film, but Michael is his conversion into being evil, and his and then the backstory of the family, how Vito came into existence, and where the Corleones come from, and how they became the family. It's just a great film. And then Godfather 3, I have yet to really sit and watch the whole damn thing at one time because it's just so bad.
It's awful.
And I saw a thing on the film, and the reason why Francis Ford Coppola's daughter ends up in such an important role is because it was supposed to be Winona Ryder, and she had some kind of breakdown or something, and he kicked her off the set and had to replace her. But I think she would have been terrible too. It takes a special kind of actress to hold up a role like that, because she's got to be essentially Michael in this film, the character you are most interested in or care the most about, and she just doesn't pull that off. And I can accept Andy Garcia as Sonny's illegitimate son. it didn't come out of left field because you saw in Godfather he's banging that fat chick, from the wedding party and everything else. So you can see, okay, it doesn't come out of left field, and it also was really missing um, Robert Duvall's character, the lawyer.
Oh yeah.
That was a huge vacuum because you're trying to fill it with other characters who just don't make the film go, and the plot, Pope John Paul I and the whole Catholic, it's not as compelling as, Hyman Roth. So,
Right.
uh, it's just Godfather 2 is just perfect. Godfather 3 just really takes all the wind out of that. It's like doing a second Goodfellas. You just can't do it. And I know it's based because it's based on a story, but you just can't do that.
Right.
It's just so much in it. So anyway, that's my monster talk for the day. Oh, which did you watch the Monday night game with DeVito?
Did I what?
Did you watch any of the Monday night game that Tommy DeVito was playing?
No, I did not.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so apparently his agent was on the sideline dressed like Rocky Balboa from Rocky, with the black hat and the turtleneck and the jacket. Looked just like Rocky from the original Rocky film. And it just, I don't know if he did that on purpose because they're playing up the whole mobster thing. I don't know, but yeah. It just I just had to laugh. I had to laugh at it. That's about all I saw in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the photos and couple videos from it, I think it's okay for me to laugh at this, because again, I am Italian, but I've seen the memes today, about him, ordering a new contract for his, DeVito, his client, and he's, the meme says, "Oh yeah, and I'll have the lasagna," stupid stuff like that. It's just, it's mildly entertaining.
Tommy doesn't have an agent; he just knows a guy,
Yeah,
yeah. He's gonna tell the GM of the Giants, I'm either going to have your signature on this contract or your brain splattered all over this contract.
Yeah.
Luca Brasi is coming to see him. And I get it. It would have been funnier, I think, if the guy would have wore a crushed velvet jogging suit and had a pinky ring and drove a Fleetwood Brougham Cadillac from like 1983 or something. That would have been really good. I actually saw that one day. And I promise, folks, we're going to get into the show. I just got to tell more mobster jokes. I am in an area where they're putting up apartments, and I kid you not, tinted windows on a 1980, probably 87 Fleetwood Brougham. This dude's got a navy crushed velvet jogging suit on with the pinky ring. He's on his 192 on his cell phone in front of a construction site. The guy's got his hair slicked back, the whole bit. I'm going, dude, really? If you wanted to capture the muscle mobster, he looked like the guy from, I just drew a blank on his name. The guy from the Sopranos, who had the white streaks in his hair. Paulie. Yeah. He looked like Paulie, except he didn't have the gray streaks in his hair. And, he's talking like this and pointing at nothing, and talking to the guy on the phone. I said, I got to get out of here. I'm going to start laughing too much. Anyway, want to start off with all that because Sunday's game, how do I put this? Sunday's game was about on par with the rest of the games of the weekend. But it was two inept franchises figuring out how to give the game away.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the team could not get anything going until Derek Carr and McCoy got into the shouting match after he took a sack. I mean, if you really look at it, it was 14-6 throughout the game, but 7 of those 14 points came on a block punt.
Yep.
I mean, it just so a 7-6 kind of ball game where nobody could do anything. They'd have one big play and then just a whole bunch of, I don't know, like they couldn't empty piss out of a boot if you had the instructions written on the heel. I mean, it's just. How did you see this game?
Inept is probably the perfect word to use. Because for 7 weeks I have been yelling and screaming about the Saints defense just being inept, throughout the first half. Well, they came out strong. New Orleans did defensively, kept an awful Carolina team from gathering any offensive momentum. So they did their job. The Saints offensively, 18 of the first 19 plays were run in Carolina territory, and they only had 7 points out of it. Now, part of that was a Blake Groupie shank of a 29-yard field goal, which is bad. But again, the Saints were actually running the ball effectively. Kamara and Williams, through the first quarter, and Kamara's touchdown on the first play of the second, 11 carries for 72 yards. You can't ask for much better. From that point on, after that first play of the second quarter, from that point on, thank you, Pete Carmichael. You combined to run Kamara and Williams 12 times for the rest of the final 3 quarters, 12 times for 27 yards. Why?
Right.
And the Saints defensively were eventually exposed for their inability to stop the running game and inability to. I love the fact that they were aggressively pressuring Bryce Young and did so effectively. But when he broke containment, again, and I've used this analogy on this show, when he broke containment, the Saints looked like a bunch of 4 and 5 year, a bunch of preschool kids chasing a butterfly on a playground. It was disgraceful was a great way to describe it. And I know you were talking about Derek Carr. So yeah, I mean, the Saints won this game because they were the less awful team on this particular day.
Well, a lot of people were talking about Derek Carr getting out of concussion protocol, and I felt that Carmichael called a very conservative game because of that.
Yeah.
And I thought Carr showed effects of the concussion, even though he cleared it, because his decision-making was slower than usual, and it's not that quick to begin with.
Right.
Yeah. And they were calling plays that were quick throws to the outside, quick throws underneath, check downs and things like that to get the pressure off of him. But then once it took Carolina about a quarter to figure that out. That's what they were doing. Once they did that, and I kept pointing at my TV going, look, count them. Count the bodies within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. There's 8 or 9 guys around the line of scrimmage. So they're just going to let you catch the ball, and they're going to be there. And on third down, they blitz them. I felt like it was almost like that's D'Amico Ryans, by the way. That's the head coach of the Texans now. I just have this on in the back because they had their throwbacks on for this one, but that's D'Amico Ryans. It's from 2011. That was that hit they did on Jimmy Graham. They got flagged for it. But anyway, it felt like they played a conservative game because they were trying to protect Carr. So it was almost like you defeated yourself by playing him.
Yeah.
you should have gone ahead and played Winston. Not that Winston would have been a much better option, because I honestly believe they probably turned the ball over a couple times with Winston out there. But I do feel that they didn't take enough shot plays. They took 2 shot plays, and both of them were open. One of them, Carr was he threw it a little too far. I'm sorry, he didn't throw it too far. He put a little too much air under it, because you saw Olave had a step on him, and then he had to slow up a little bit, and that was enough for J.C. Horn to get his hand out and bat the ball away. But it was a good throw. It just he puts too much air. That should have been more of a rope on that end. And the other one was A.T. Perry. He threw it out too far ahead of A.T. Perry, so Perry had to dive for it instead of getting it in stride. But that, to me, that's also because you may have practiced all week, but there were a lot of plays they were probably running with Winston, not Carr back there, So the timing was off on that. I don't know. I just felt like Carr wasn't all there Sunday, and it showed in the way they played. And it took him almost a quarter and a half or 3 quarters to really start getting his focus.
Yeah.
And so that's why his stats were so bad, and it just, everything was wrong in that game. I probably would have just held him out anyway, because it was Carolina, because I felt confident enough that Carolina was not going to be able to do anything. I mean, I see you nodding your head. Are you in agreement on this?
I am. And I think you and I talked about it on Tuesday last week. That we were in agreement that for medical reasons, that even if Carr cleared concussion protocol, which obviously he ultimately did, that maybe you should sit him. In fact, I think I had said, or maybe one of us had said, as soon as Carr had the basically back-to-back concussions, 2 and 3 games, you go to your team and both quarterbacks on Monday morning and say, we're going to go with Jameis Winston as the starter. We're going to design our game plan around what Jameis does best, protect his weaknesses, and Derek, if you clear concussion protocol, you'll be the backup. That's what I felt they should have done the whole game, or the whole week. And you wrote about it in your Good, Bad, and Ugly, that they designed the game plan as if Jameis Winston was going to play. But clearly Carr had practiced all week. So, again, it was a case of the right arm not knowing what the left arm is doing, or right-left brain syndrome. And, at the end of the day, neither side works properly.
Yeah. And that leads to my next topic, the use of Jimmy Graham. Allen's been beat up about this for a couple of days now. Why have you not used Jimmy Graham more in the passing game? And I think I know the answer. I think the answer really. Oh, there's Mr. Jolon Dunbar. He's been on our show before. I think I know the answer. I think the answer is because you felt like Juwan Johnson was going to be your breakout player. Juwan Johnson had the chemistry with Carr. Juwan Johnson gives you everything that 36-year-old Graham gives you as far as being a pass catcher, a little bit better blocker. So you're going to use him more and save Graham if you need him in case of injury. I think that was the vision, honestly, for Graham. But what we've seen out of Juwan Johnson is he is not that reliable. He's not having that breakout season. He makes a lot of mistakes. And it's almost like Allen had to wait to the point that Johnson was making enough mistakes that, okay, you're going to have to sit on the bench. And I guess we'll stop playing Jimmy Graham more. But if you notice, Foster Moreau's been getting more and more looks, more and more throws to him. And then they started incorporating Graham more.
Yep.
And I think you'll see Graham more in this game too. This game coming up, only because I think Juwan Johnson's kind of in the doghouse. He disappeared after the first quarter Sunday, and you saw him just sit on the bench. I never really even saw him in the game again. Is that kind of how you feel about this? And he
Yeah,
can't. Allen
100%.
can't say this.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
100%
Allen
agree.
can't say this in a press conference because you're trying not to tear down the player. Yeah.
Well,
So do you think
and
Graham should get more throws to him?
yeah, I absolutely do. And I agree with what you said about Jawan's just had a miserable season. I still think he's a solid complementary player, but I think he's proven this year that he cannot be your starting tight end going forward. So add that on to the extremely long list of offseason needs. I think, but more so than Jawan, and plus the fact that Taysom Hill was banged up and missed Sunday's game. You're also without you're also without Rashid Shaheed. You're without Michael Thomas. So at wide receiver, you have a concussed Chris Olave, Marquez Callaway. We know how that story plays out. A.T. Perry. It's pretty clear that Derek Carr does not feel comfortable with A.T. Perry yet. Keith Kirkwood. We know how that story plays out. And Lynn Bowden, who I like as far as his overall versatility, but it's clear that Pete Carmichael doesn't know how to use them. So it's almost like Dennis Allen didn't have a choice but to play Jimmy Graham. And I get what the vision was, and that's what you and I both told people at the beginning. Hey, don't expect Graham to be an every down player because he's just not that anymore. Plus, there's not enough balls to go around. What with Olave, Shaheed, Thomas at receiver, Kamara catching passes, Jawan expected to have a bigger role, and Foster Moreau, he's going to be your traditional inline tight end. Plus he has chemistry with Carr. But the problem that I have is when Juwan Johnson was injured and they weren't working the middle of the field with the wideouts and still struggling in the red zone, you still didn't use Jimmy Graham. Yeah. That's the role that Jimmy Graham should have been brought in to fill. And you had him on the roster, and most days most games he wasn't even active. That's just that is, if there's a metaphor to sum up Dennis Allen and or Pete Carmichael and their way of thinking or not thinking, it's that situation right here.
There's Graham catching a touchdown right there. And it's poor utilization of personnel, and we've been talking about that all year long. If Allen's going to have a downfall, it's going to be his poor utilization of his personnel and his poor understanding of how to be creative with the personnel that you have. Olave, I've been giving Olave a lot of credit for stepping up in the absence of Thomas and Shaheed, but it's almost like Olave needed those guys out the way to feel like he was the man, and for Carmichael to realize I need to throw to him a lot more and call his number a lot more to keep him interested in the game. And we talked about this with Carr. It seems like Carr goes through favorites. I'm going to go to Thomas a lot on this drive. I'm going to Shaheed a lot on this drive. I'm going to Olave a lot on this drive. And Breeze, I hate doing this because I make fun of people who say you shouldn't compare everybody to Breeze, but here I'm going to compare Carr to what Drew Brees did. Drew Brees wouldn't have done this. Drew Brees wouldn't have done that. But Brees had the ability, and Peyton called plays this way, that 7 and 9 different guys touch the ball, not throughout the whole game, but sometimes in one drive. You think about the Super Bowl, for example, when they got the touchdown, the big touchdown in the game, it was we start off with Bush, then we go hit Thomas, and then we go, and you could see it Colston down, and the touchdown goes to Shockey, and the 2-point conversion goes to Moore. All guys who got one reception that whole drive, and Hokie says it when you're listening to the soundbite. Hokie's saying, the Colts don't know who to key in on because Drew Brees just spreading that ball
Mhm.
around. And they don't do that. And very few people do that. But in this case, you don't see that happening out there. So um, that to me, that's what's going to be Dennis Allen's downfall
Yep.
is that he did not force Carmichael, and Carmichael didn't do it this way, to spread the ball around, spread the wealth around, keep these players interested, use your personnel better, create the mismatches. The only time I ever saw him do mismatches was in the damn Colts game when they
Mhm.
targeted the third cornerback, and they got him matched up one-on-one with guys like Shaheed and guys like Olave. Well, he couldn't cover those guys,
Yep.
and they isolated that guy, and there's just not enough for that. If you're gonna call a deep shot, don't call the deep shot on J.C. Horn's side. Call the deep
Mhm.
shot on somebody on the other guy's side. That guy's the guy having the problems. That's who A.T. Perry caught the ball
Yeah.
against. Speaking of, we'll flip it over the defense. Carolina targeted Isaac Yiadom. If you notice
Mhm.
that almost exclusively in the game, they stayed away from Paulson Adebo, and Yiadom had a good game. Were you
Oh yeah.
impressed with Yiadom?
Absolutely. And obviously when you're without a guy like Marshawn Lattimore, there's going to be a drop off in play. But you got to credit Yidam because the way he has played at every opportunity earlier this year when Adebo was hurt and since Lattimore went down, teams are rightfully going to target him because Adebo is just having an outstanding year. Alontae Taylor, he's had his ups and downs. Alontae has, but teams still know that Alontae Taylor is a quality defensive back. So obviously, you do try to target Yidam. And if my numbers are correct, Isaac had 3 or 4 pass breakups and only gave up 1 reception while in man coverage. And you can't ask for better numbers than that. And this is not an isolated thing for Yidam. Again, he has done this at every opportunity he's been given this year. You can't fault the Saints cornerbacks for the downfall of this defense over the last 7 or 8 weeks because this unit has continued to play elite football.
Absolutely. By the way, that interception just now, I don't know if you guys saw that or not. That was the Jabari Greer, brand new Saints Hall of Fame member, Jabari Greer, picking that pass off. This is a really fun game. I was
Yeah,
watching
it
the
was.
first half last night, and if I want to draw a comparison to Derek Carr, I'm probably comparing him to Schaub. Because
That's a good one.
Schaub, if you watch this game, Schaub has a lot of good moments getting this ball down the field to Andre Johnson. There's a guy whose career was wasted.
Mm-hmm.
They talk a lot about players' wasted careers. Andre Johnson, got to the playoffs a few times, mostly played with a lot of bad Texans teams. But yeah, he got them into the red zone and they had to settle for field goals. And they were only up 16-7. It became 16-10 by halftime, but it was a 1-score game. But if you look at statistics, the Texans had almost 300 yards total offense in the first half, but only 16 points on the board. I'm like, my God, that's today's Saints.
Yeah.
That's what it's like watching the Saints right now. And so it's a really good comparison. I put this game on, started to watch it last night, and this is the other half of it. But anyway, I was going to go back to this, talking about Yidam. He was a guy that you didn't expect much out of him. In fact, in preseason, I was kind of like, yeah, he's okay, but that's not somebody I want to see out there a lot. And when he got promoted, when Adebo got hurt, he really proved something to me in that Packers game, and I've just been impressed with him ever since. And if we rip on Dennis Allen a lot, but if there's something that Dennis Allen knows or gets really well, it's secondary play. And it's
Mhm.
fitting because he was a secondary coach of the Saints from 2008 to 2010.
Right.
He understands how to get these guys to play beyond their ability, and gets the most out of these corners. And he's trying to get it with Alontae Taylor, who is actually the weak link right now as far as coverage in the secondary, but he's a better tackler,
Mhm.
you know. So I've just really been impressed with Yedem. I hope the Saints can hold on to him because I think he's got a lot of growth potential. He's got the potential to really stick with a team. Another friend of the show last night, or I'm sorry, Sunday. Did you get to see any of the end of the Rams Ravens game? Because they flipped to that game after the Saints game. I don't know if you
Uh,
got that or not.
I flipped around a little bit. I missed. I saw the last part of the fourth quarter, but I missed the punt return for the I missed the punt return for a touchdown by the Ravens that won the game in overtime. At least I missed it live. Obviously, I saw it on replay. So yeah, I missed the tail end, but I saw what I can only describe as a frenetic fourth quarter by both teams.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason I'm bringing this up, another friend of the show who's been on our show, Arthur Millette, plays for the Ravens now, and he made a big play at the end of that game to force overtime, and then he made a big play in overtime to stop the Rams from getting down the field and score. So it was he was number 10 for the Ravens, and it was funny to see his name up there. I'm like, yeah, former Saint, just one of those guys, another one of those defensive backs that he's grown since he left us, but
Yeah.
he was the guy who had that raw ability in the beginning. So it's just, I thought of him, I'm like, praising Isaac Yedem, and there's Arthur Millette out there doing something for somebody else, which was a good story. Zach Bond. We've talked a lot about Zach Bond on this show. He's a special teams guy. Well, they're giving him the Caden Ellis role because Cam Jordan that's a really bad ankle sprain he has, and he has been off the field a lot.
Mhm.
Zach Bond's now rushing the passer, which is what he did at Wisconsin. And he's getting success doing it. In fact, they show Cam Jordan on the sideline teaching Bond how to, use your hands better, break off, how to turn your hips, that kind of thing. Have the Saints been playing Zach Bond in the wrong position all this time?
1,000%. 1,000, 1,000,000%, 1,000,000,000%. And I've said this from his very first snap as a rookie. I watched a lot of Zach Bond film leading up to that draft, and I like the player that I saw at Wisconsin. He's a smart player, very aggressive, physical, although undersized.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Saints drafted him, I did openly question, I wonder what the role is going to be for him. And the role has been all wrong. They tried to convert him into an off-ball linebacker, while he has the shorts and t-shirt athleticism to do it. The change of the numbers that you see at the combine, the cone drill, the change of direction, the flat out 40 time, which is probably why they decided, this guy's a good enough athlete and he's a smart enough football player that he'll be able to pick up the system in a year or two as an off-ball linebacker. Well, it just hasn't happened. And one reason for that is the Saints just ask so much of their linebackers. You look at everything Demario Davis does, and we take it for granted at how great he is up here. But to be a good linebacker in Dennis Allen's system, you have to be great up here. Jolon Dunbar has said it. Jonathan Vilma has said it. Other players have said it. And Zach Bond just wasn't able to mesh the physical and the mental together. So, that's why I've been, and I feel like the criticism is harsh now. This year, I've often called him I've called him Traquan Bond.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I feel a little bit bad now because, as you said, the last 2 or 3 games, and I really noticed it come out in the Atlanta game, that they were playing him at that defensive end spot. Not every down, because again, he's undersized. Teams are going to run the ball at him with a lot of success if he stays there on every down. But they're using him just as a downhill linebacker, a downhill defender, as you put it. The way Caden Ellis had his breakout year last season is similar to the way they're using Zach Bond. You don't want Bond in coverage. Although we saw that, I think it was Minnesota, the Minnesota game twice. Oh, even early against Atlanta. You flip on early against Atlanta. There's Zach Bond getting burned. For a deep play down the middle of the field. That's not the role that Zach Bond was ever intended to play, and it's fitting that the Saints have finally figured out how to use him. Because if I'm not mistaken, Zach Bond is in a contract year.
Mm-hmm. I know he is. He is. And so the reason why I'm asking this is because I'm seeing people talking about turning the Saints into a 3-4 defense to take advantage of a guy like Zach Bond. And my problem with doing that is your personnel is all wrong for a 3-4 defense, including your first round pick this year.
Mm-hmm.
It took the Saints 3 years to go from a 3-4 to a 4-3. And you had a lot of junk on that team in the meantime just to put bodies out there. And it took them a while to get those guys to do that. It's going to take at least 4 years to fully integrate a 3-4 scheme. You can, as your base defense, you don't have the linebackers, first off. Demario Davis and Pete Werner are not 3-4 linebackers, especially Werner. He's too small.
Yep.
Sam Mills is 5'11". I get that. Sam Mills is also built like a friggin' fire plug. He had a thick, compact body, and he was already in a tackling position when he hit you. And you heard Sam Mills's hits because he would come in and lift his head up and get you under the chin with the top of his helmet. All legal, but you heard that hit. Vaughn Johnson was the guy who was built like a traditional 3-4 middle linebacker, inside linebacker. And Pat Swillian and Ricky Jackson were defensive end kind of players, but built like linebackers who had that great speed off the edge.
Yep.
You don't have any of that. Zach Bond does not have that explosive speed to get off the edge and just be in the backfield before that offensive lineman gets out of his break. It's just not going to happen.
Yep. And you look at Carl Granderson. He's not big enough to play a 3-4 defensive end, and he's not agile enough to to convert to that Pat Swilling, Ricky Jackson role as an outside linebacker. You drafted Peyton Turner, Isaiah Foskey. They are 4-3 defensive ends. It's that simple. Brian Brissy, you're going to convert. You're going to tell that guy, an athletic disruptor at defensive tackle. You're going to tell him, okay, you're now going to be a nose tackle and take on, forget double teams that you're slicing. You're going to be taking on triple teams now, every single week. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This team is just flat out not built for a 4-3 base alignment.
No, I mean, the only guy who could play in a 4-3 or a 3-4 is Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan's built like an end. Cam Jordan's built like an end. You've got to have a big fat guy in the middle. And you probably can get away with it with Saunders in there in the middle. And you could probably get away with try and put Brzee as one end and maybe Peyton Turner as the other end. But how successful are they going to be in a two-gap scheme where their job is to hold up the offensive linemen, do not let them get to the second level so the linebackers can flow cleanly to the ball carrier.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can do that. So that's what I'm saying. It's going to take a lot of drafting and a lot of replacing to get to those players. And one of the reasons why the 3-4 defense fell out of favor in the NFL, because it was the defense of the 80s, was that a 3-4, the colleges stopped putting out 3-4 linebackers. You weren't getting the Ricky Jacksons, the Pat Swillings, the Lawrence Taylors, the Derek Thomases. You weren't getting those guys anymore. Those guys were getting converted, believe it or not, to tight ends, getting converted to defensive ends. That's the difference. That's why those defenses went away, and everybody started going back to 4-3. You can do 3-4 schemes within a 4-3. More likely, you can do within a 3-4 defense. You're playing 4-3 on certain downs, like third and long. Where the linebackers come down and put their hands on the ground.
Yeah,
but you've got to have some fast, tall, lanky linebackers who are good with their hands and knocking offensive linemen down, knocking their hands down, and you just don't have that. I mean, if the colleges don't put out those kind of players, you get one or two, but not a whole bunch. That was our issue. Remember when we argued about Hassan Riddick?
Yes, sir.
Hassan Riddick. Every time I look at him, I'm like, yeah, that's a 3-4 outside linebacker. And that's kind of how the Eagles use him. They use him kind of as a roamer. The same with a guy like Micah Parsons with the Cowboys. He's a 3-4 outside linebacker that they just have him roam the defense, and he finds the gap and shoots it. But there's not enough of those guys. There's a handful in college, but not enough to build as your base defense. So, it is frustrating that, because I agree with you. I think Bond has been misused. But you drafted him without having a good vision for him. And that's a Sean Payton problem. That's looking at the athleticism, his IQ, his football IQ and stuff, and saying, okay, I can make this octagon-shaped peg fit in this round hole. I just have to get it rubbed in there enough that it'll go all the way through. And it just isn't quite a fit. Speaking of defenders, the Giants, they've got a couple of guys on this team that are going to be a problem. How do you see the Saints offense dealing with the Giants defense?
With the Giants, you have to be physical internally. Because we talked about the guys, the edge guys, that almost transcend a position. They're not a 4-3 defensive end, but they're not a 3-4 outside linebacker either. Kayvon Thibodeau is starting to form into that type of player. He's now in his second year. He has 11.5 sacks. 27 pressures, 12 tackles for loss. He's a guy that they're going to move around just to find the one-on-one matchups and the gaps. But the Giants are also 29th against the run, 31st in yards per carry against them. They've given up a lot of rushing yards, and that's because people have been able to run up inside against them. And aside from Thibodeau, New York just doesn't have a lot of players to put pressure on the passer. Again, the Giants run that 3-4 scheme, but to your point about the Saints not having the personnel for it, Dexter Lawrence, who I think is a fantastic 3-technique defensive tackle or defensive end in some 4-3 alignments, they're playing him at nose tackle. So, they're not doing him a service at all. If you're able to double, triple team Lawrence and move him to the side, you're able to get yards and, get to the second level of the Giants defense relatively quickly. And that's what I have seen a lot of opponents been able to do. The ones that have been able to stay patient with it. But the Saints are going to have to mix up their play calling. They're going to have to find an answer, not only for, Thibodeau, but, Ojulari, who looks to be finally healthy. He's a fantastic edge complement, at the other outside linebacker spot. So, Andrus Peat and Ryan Ramczyk, who we know have had problems against athletic rushers all year long, they're going to have their work cut out for them. And when the Giants run those inside twists and stunts that they will do with these outside guys, Ruiz, the human turnstile in pass protection, and Eric McCoy, who has forgotten the fact that he's used to be so capable of making those line adjustments up front. Those interior issues that the Saints have had all year long, they're going to be exposed really quickly too if they don't find an answer and watch some film on these Giants.
Yeah. And this is going to be a really important game that the Saints do run the football, and they have gotten better at running the football, but they need to stick with it. Now the Saints signed a running back today. What was his name?
James Robinson.
James Robinson. Thank you. Why do you think they brought him in?
It wouldn't surprise me if we saw Kendre Miller placed on injured reserve in the next day or two. And Miller has missed the last 4 or 5 games anyway. Because he hasn't been healthy. That ankle that he hurt in preseason never did have a chance to get healthy. Taysom Hill is banged up too. As we all know, Taysom is their most consistent power runner inside. Well, that's what James Robinson gives you. James has the athleticism to get, the agility, I should say, to produce on off tackle plays. But he's a 5'9", 220-pound bowling ball. He's an inside runner. Make no mistake about it. And the Saints have had trouble with running the ball inside if it's not Taysom Hill this year. That's not Alvin Kamara can do it, but that's not his best skill set. Jamal Williams signed to do it, has not been effective there. Now part of that is on Jamal, part of that is on the blocking. James Robinson gives them another interior option where hopefully Pete Carmichael won't have to beat the hell out of Alvin Kamara running him inside, and he can move Kamara around the formation a little bit, something they've gotten away from in the last 3 or 4 ball games. So I think that's the logic behind James Robinson here.
Plus, you've got a game on Thursday night. To me, that's what
that too.
The Rams. You're going to Los Angeles on Thursday, so you're playing on a short week. It's going to be very difficult for the Saints to play guys that don't practice much this week, and are probably going to be out this week. We're going to be out on Thursday as well. That's just the reality of playing on a short week like that. So I think that Taysom Hill probably doesn't play again until the Tampa game, unfortunately, because I think that foot issue. Now, if he can play tomorrow, if he can play on Sunday, then he might play both games. But to me, the guys that won't play this Sunday aren't going to play Thursday either. And that's basically what I think Robinson was brought in for. You're going to have to do a lot of the Taysom Hill stuff these 2 games. So we'll see. Rashid Shaheed's got a quad muscle issue. He is reported that it was a lot more serious than they thought. Do you think he has a shot of playing this week?
I would be surprised if he did, Alan. I heard the same reports that you did, about the severity of the injury. And my first thought was, okay, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Shaheed put on injured reserve. Now, I understand the logic of them not doing it, but know this too, folks. Rashid Shaheed's a speed guy. If you're talking about a hamstring, a quad, a thigh injury, on I don't know, a Jamal Williams or somebody like that, any skill position that's extremely that provides an extremely large limitation. When it's on a speed guy, a track guy, that takes them completely out of commission if it's not 100%, because your speed guys, they need to explode like that. That's where your thigh, your hamstring, your quad, that's where they come into play. And if he doesn't have that immediate get-go without re-aggravating it, then he's almost useless. But by the same token, you don't want to rush back an injury like that either, because again, on a speed guy, when he's counting on that muscle to respond to what the body needs it to do, and it doesn't, you're talking about an even more severe injury that could linger into next season, or could even not be career threatening but affect his long-term career. So I would actually be very surprised to see Shaheed back before the Tampa Bay game.
Yeah, he tried toughing out against Atlanta, and I think he made it a little bit worse trying to keep playing on it. Bowden has not disappointed me with his handling of punts and kick returns. It's just
not at all.
You miss that explosive speed of a Shaheed. You get some of it with Olave, but Shaheed is just pure speed. He is, like you said, he's a track guy. Now, Michael Thomas could come back for the Rams game because they could activate him from injured reserve. I'd be surprised if he plays in that game, but it's a possibility depending on who's available for that game. If that was going to be a Sunday game, then I'm saying, okay, he's going to come back. But a Thursday game, it's almost like you got two divisional games that you really need to get. If you win Sunday and lose to the Rams, but the same thing happens to the Falcons and the Bucs, then you're kind of going, okay, you know what? It doesn't hurt us. We can still win the division at 9-8 because we just have to beat those guys and then see where the tiebreakers fall. Now the Saints on the wrong end of the tiebreakers because the Bucs and the Falcons are both 3-1 and the Saints are 2-2 in the division. But getting those wins and you're hoping you get one more loss out of either Atlanta or Tampa, it gets you in a much better position. But that's all supposition. If they lose Sunday and they lose against the Rams, then mathematically it's over. You've got too many losses.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless the Falcons and the Buccaneers both lose 2 in the process, and with this division, I don't put it out of the realm of possibility. But at the same time, I agree with what you're saying. With one exception, and I'll get to the end of that one in a minute. I think with Shaheed, I think with Thomas, and probably Lattimore too. They're looking at the short turnaround week to Los Angeles after this Giants game, and they're figuring, okay, you have to go into this Giants game thinking this is a must win. And then you're looking to get all your guys back for the Tampa Bay to finish the year at Tampa Bay and at home against Atlanta, with the real possibility of probability of those 2 games deciding the entire division, not only for whether you're going to win it, but whether Tampa Bay or Atlanta wins it as well. So I do think that they're eyeing that up for a return for Thomas, Shaheed, and probably Lattimore. Now with Taysom, I believe that they'll go into New York with the thought that they're not going to play Taysom Hill, but that maybe if that foot is responding to treatment, that maybe they sit him out for an extra few days of rest in case they need him for a must win against the Rams. So that's I agree with what you said about Shaheed Thomas for sure. With Taysom, I agree with you that I wouldn't expect him to play against the Giants. And I think the signing of James Robinson today is a big indicator of that too. But they're probably feeling, okay, we could beat the Giants without Taysom, but against Sean McVay's defense, and I know McVay's an offensive guy, but the Rams coaching staff. Against what the Rams like to do, Taysom Hill would be a real good nullifier of what they like to do with Aaron Donald, because how they're going to move Aaron Donald will be dependent on how we're going to move Taysom Hill in the formation and vice versa. So in other words, I think Taysom Hill is a bigger chess piece for the Rams game than he would be the Giants game if you're only going to have him for one of the two.
Exactly. Oh, look, there's Carr getting a concussion. So that finishes the comparison between, and this is, of course, back in the day where they didn't take you out for concussions. They just gave you smelling salts. Well, that finishes the comparison between him and Derek Carr. Anyway, yeah, I agree with all of that. I really do. And I think this is the must-win game for them. This Sunday. But this Sunday. But the Thursday night game is a game where they feel like we can win it, but we don't have to win it.
Right.
That's the one game that they can say, okay, that's not a must win, only because you do have those two divisional games that are left. And I don't know what the Falcons and the Rams, or not Rams. Falcons and the Bucs. I don't know what their final schedule looks like. I think the Bucs play the Panthers one more time.
They do. Well, both the Falcons and the Bucs play the Panthers one more time. One of them plays Carolina this weekend, and the other plays at Green Bay. Which is that's a catch-22 because Green Bay you could still conceivably catch in a wild card scenario, but you need the Packers to lose a couple of games down the stretch. At the same time, same with the Vikings for that matter. But at the same time, the reality is their only logical shot to the playoffs is by winning the division. So the Tampa Bay, Atlanta, they've got to lose.
Yeah, exactly. I know, and people are like, why do you even want them to make the playoffs? Don't you want them to lose the rest of the games and go get Jalen Daniels Jalen Daniels is the name I keep seeing over and over and over again, because you're dealing with, it's a three-headed monster that's on social media. The first head is the Fire Dennis Allen head.
Yes.
The second head is Jameis Winston, the Jameis Winston hive. And the third head is the draft Jalen Daniels head. So it's like you've got those three heads on this. It's like the Ghidra. That's the name of the monster, Ghidra from the Godzilla films.
I'd have never remembered that.
Oh, I had to think. I almost said Rodan, but I know it's not Rodan. It's Rodan, the big bird. I almost said his name, but it's not him. It's the three-headed monster, except it's the meme three-headed monster with the bug eyes and the tongue hanging out, because it's not the intelligent one. Because and I keep saying on Twitter, and I'm going to get blue in the face on this because we really don't know, but I keep reminding people the Saints are going to win enough games that they're not going to be in the top 5 of the draft. Jalen Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. He has the attention of the entire league. They're going to all be looking at that. And I had one guy arguing with me that a bunch of teams didn't need quarterbacks like we do. I'm going, have you watched the Patriots? Have you watched the Jets? Have you watched the Raiders? That Raiders-Vikings game. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. You don't even know if the Bears are going to stick with Justin Fields. I mean, Justin Fields is putting on a little bit of a show, but that is like Jimmy Gumbo says. Panther fans have to be dying inside knowing that number one pick isn't theirs. They are. They are furious. They hate everybody, and this is the warning. Really, it's the warning to every team. If you're going to trade up, you make sure and get the guy that you think is going to do what you want. They did the exact opposite. They traded up, then debated who they were going to get.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that.
Not to mention that you didn't have the team to put around him, so you were almost destined for another high pick to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the Bears have 2 number 1 picks, and both of them will likely be in the top 5. Yep. They get to do what the Texans did. The Texans took their quarterback and took the best defensive end. So they have a core to build their team around.
Yep.
So, it's really, I mean, I'm still friends with a lot of Panther guys. The guys that are on the Cat Chronicles, the Carolina Panthers podcast and things like you and I both have been on their show a few times. I mean, you think Saints Twitter is bad? The Carolina Twitter, it's a one that nobody's got fights in the street because that's how angry these people are. I mean, and it's they're pissed they didn't draft CJ Stroud because it's their worst nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Young had a lot of concerns, and I said this ahead of time, and Calvin starting his shit. My daughter likes Penix a lot, by the way.
I do too.
She pointed out the fact that inside at the Heisman thing, inside Penix's suit, the lining in his suit were the names of his teammates. Okay, everybody got him there, and the inside of Jalen Daniels' suit was pictures of himself, and she is comparing that to the questions you asked Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf in the draft day. Peyton, what would you do if you were announcing number 1 overall pick? I want to get the playbooks. I want to get to learn who my teammates are. I want to get to know all this stuff. And then Ryan Leaf was, I'm going to Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's that bad, but it is very revealing.
And 95% of the Saints fans that are pounding the table for for Daniels. I get it. He's an intriguing athletic talent. As a passer, his mechanics have a long way to go. But I listen. I have the entire offseason to debate that. But I will say this: 95% of those people, if Michael Penix was the LSU quarterback, or if Bo Nix, who I really like as well, was the LSU quarterback, they'd be saying the same exact things. That's just reality. That's A. B, whether it's Jalen Daniels or any of those other quarterbacks, who's going to coach them, folks? And Alan and I have told you this before. Let's get your coaching staff situated first. If indeed they do make any moves, that's another topic for another time. That's number 2. And number 3, back to your point of, the people that are saying, I don't even want the Saints to make the playoffs. 95% of those people have never played a competitive sport in their life. Because if you have, you'd never even think with that mentality. You want to get into it. Is this Saints team a good team? No. I say it every week. They do what bad teams do, and they do it a lot. But if you get into the playoffs, you never know what is going to happen. I grant you, I wouldn't bet a single dollar on the Saints making the Super Bowl if they do sneak into the playoffs. But you never know. They're one of only 14 teams that have that opportunity. So they get on a hot streak, and you don't know what could happen. So if you're thinking that a top 8, a top 10 pick by not making the playoffs is going to solve all this team's problems, wow, someone's got to change your medications because you're just barking up the wrong tree.
Well, and I go back, and because I'm old, I go back to the 1983 Saints, the 1990 Saints. 83, we just wanted to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
We had a chance to make the playoffs and have our first ever winning season. Oh shit. Come on. Come back. Okay, and we're back. That Rams game was the entire season for everybody. That was the most important thing. When Lansford hit that field goal, it was the air just got sucked out of that stadium. Now, I don't know if St. John Butler is still on. I was not at that game. I was actually at a Christmas party with my family, and we watched it on TV, and we were so excited that the Saints are going to win. Saints are going to win, and then the Rams start that drive, and you could just feel all the energy drain out of the room that day. Conversely, 1990, that was not a good Saints offense at all. That was terrible. Okay, they lost a game 6-0 against the Steelers that season. It was just a dreadful offense. The Dome Patrol kept them in the playoff hunt, and they ended up 8-8, and they beat the Rams in the final game of Monday Night Football, which back then that was a huge thing because Monday Night Football now ends the week before the final week of the season. Yeah. Well, that was the last game of the season. They had the cameras at Champions, Morton Anderson's old restaurant in Lakeside Mall. The day before, and they were all cheering because the 49ers lost to the Falcons to help get the Saints in a position to get in the playoffs. I'm sorry. I think the Falcons actually beat I think that's when the Falcons beat the 49ers. It was that's how the Saints got in because of the tiebreakers. If they won that game, and then they showed the Cowboys, who were a year away from going 1-15, had a shot in the playoffs, but the Saints winning meant the Cowboys didn't get to go. Saints go at 8-8. People are thrilled. It was New Year's Eve. People had a great time. They loved that game. And in both cases, the Rams going in 83, they go to play the Washington Redskins in 1983, defending Super Bowl champions, highest scoring offense in the NFL. They got the shit beat out of them. It was like 40-6 or something ridiculous like that. That's the one that went on to play the Raiders in the Super Bowl, the last Raiders Super Bowl. Okay. But the Saints would have been thrilled to make the playoffs that year. 1990, we play the Bears in Soldier Field. We lose 16-6 in an ugly game that I don't care what they say. They were not offsides when they blocked that kick, and Vince Buck ran it back for a touchdown. I'll never forget John Madden drawing the line, and all the Saints players on the other side of the line, and he stops talking like, I guess they saw something.
Whoops, right.
Yeah. But yeah, you want to win the division and you want to go to the playoffs because that shows that you're progressing to other teams. As bad as you are, you're still progressing. Yeah, I agree with you, Jimmy Gumbo. I want to see him win the division. I'd love to see him win this crappy division. Put another banner up for another division title. We all take all that stuff for granted. We're just going to go back. The Jets haven't been in the playoffs in 11 years. It's going to be 12 years now because they're not going this year. They're almost eliminated.
Right.
When you start missing the playoffs year after year after year, fans just lose their interest. Fans and everything becomes cynical. that's why I want them to go, because I'm tired of the cynicism.
Yep.
I know they're not any good, but this is 2015 here. I want them to go to the playoffs in 2015 with an historically bad defense.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 7 touchdown performance by Drew Brees, by the way. And they could not cover the pick route to save their life.
No.
It was unbelievable. They could not cover a pick. But yeah, I wanted this team to go just because I wanted them to go. Yeah, there's a pick right there. It's just you want to go because you want to show progress.
Yeah, and not only that, but you don't have a chance to win a championship unless you get to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Coughlin, both Tom Coughlin's Super Bowl teams with the Giants, they were 9-7. The Panthers team that won that division, in 2014, it's 7-8-1, I believe. They won a playoff game. The Sea Hags, when they beat the Saints in 2010, they entered with, I believe, a 7-9 record or 8-8 record, into the playoffs. They won a playoff game and damn well almost won their divisional game too, after lucking out against the Saints. So you don't know what can happen when they get there. Again, would I bet a single cent on it, on them going on a run? No. But I wouldn't have bet a cent on the Seahawks against the Saints that year. I wouldn't have bet a cent on the Panthers, their 2014 team winning a playoff game. Wouldn't have bet a cent on either of Coughlin's teams going to the Super Bowl, let alone winning it. So you never know until they get there. Again, this is still a team with Alvin Kamara, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, an extremely talented cornerback crew. Chris Olave, Shaheed Thomas, if they get back healthy, there's still talent on this team, and maybe they put it all together. Maybe they pull a Ted Lasso down the stretch. You never say never. Again, I'm not counting on it. I don't expect it, but you can't. I don't think you could be a true competitor if you sit there and say, whether you're a part of the team, on the team, or even a fan of the team. I don't think you're a true competitor if you sit there and say, I don't want them to win this.
Yeah, I mean, what's more disappointing to me is when you win 13 games in a row, or you win, you go to the playoffs with a 12-13 win season, and then you lose in that first round. That is far more upsetting. And I'm thinking about 1987. 1987.
I was too.
Yeah, you go on a 8-game or 7-game winning streak, an unbelievable winning streak. You're one of the hottest teams in the league, and the only reason why you didn't win a division title that year is because the damn 49ers won one more game than you did.
Yeah.
So, look, a Jarius Byrd play that should be sent
the
to
one.
Him. Yeah, because he actually made a play for us. But I mean, that is one of those kind of seasons where, and we got beat 44-10 versus the Vikings. In fact, I think as I'm talking about this play, Keith Millard just bulldozed Brad Edelman one more time to get in the backfield and sack Bobby Hebert or Ruben Mays. I mean, Keith Millard was a problem that day. Henry Thomas was too, but Keith Millard was the one I wanted to go take out somewhere and shoot him because I was tired of hearing his name. But yeah, I mean, that's what gets disappointing. Losing to the 49ers in 2011, that was frustrating. That's what hurt, because you won all those games and you looked so good doing it. To come in and no one expects anything out of you. You host a playoff game and you pull off a win. I mean, that's part of the reason why the 2000 playoff game is remembered so fondly by people, aside from the fact that it was the first ever playoff game the Saints ever won, was you're playing against the Super Bowl champion, defending Super Bowl champion, who kicked your ass the week before. Marshall Faulk destroyed you. Joe Horn gets knocked out like the third play from scrimmage. You're playing Aaron Brooks, who went 3-3 over the regular season. And who's he going to throw to? The one guy he was throwing to was Joe Horn that whole time. And now he's got to go to Willie Jackson, you know. There's no Ricky Williams. It's Terry Allen with his artificial knees and Chad Morton. I'm throwing these names out there, and people are like going, holy shit. How do you remember these guys? I've watched this game a lot. I really have. But yeah, you know, Brian Milne, another guy who's been on our show. You know, these are the guys who are out there playing, and you're not expected to win against the greatest show on turf. You're not expected to do these things against these guys. I mean, these guys are supposed to make another run because they are the Philadelphia Eagles of the year 2000. They had the best offense. They had, you know, the unstoppable offense, and they showed it the week before to help them get in that playoff position. And we pulled the upset off. And just a typical Saints style, though. It took basically the last play of the game to win it. But yeah, I mean, so I'm ready for the chaos. I'm down for the excitement. They won't get shut out. You know, as bad as this team plays, I don't see them getting shut out or shut down or anything like that in a playoff situation, simply because they don't give up like that. They don't roll over and die. They may play like shit for a while, but they eventually, like after the fight with McCoy, something that seemed to wake them up and go, hey, I guess we better put a drive together. Yeah. And they'll figure out a way to score, you know? So I, on paper, it looks like it's going to be a mismatch against everybody, but you almost beat Detroit. Really. You know, you almost beat Minnesota. You threw 2 interceptions. You turn the ball over against Detroit. You know, you don't do those things, you might win those 2 games.
Yep.
You know, like I said, there's a lot of bad football out there. They had a story today, I think 19 teams are 6-7 or 7-6.
Yep.
5-8 in that range. 19 teams out of 32. You know, that's just amazing to me. So yeah, the Saints look like garbage, but so does the rest of the league. You know, so you never know what happens in the playoffs. How do you think this game will play out versus the Giants? And then what do you have coming up in the Bayou Blitz?
I tell you, I worry that the Saints are going to come out listless, flat, and idiotic again. And if they do, they lose. You know, because the Giants are not a good football team. But I think Brian Dable is a hell of a coach, and you know, these guys are playing hard for him. Playing hard for him to save his job, to save their own jobs, you know, to earn jobs of their own. The New York's won 3 straight. Yeah, and you know what worries me for the Giants offensively is you know, Tommy DeVito is he's that's who everybody is talking about. Saquon Barkley is still an explosive back, and remember what Saquon Barkley did to a better Saints defense 2 years ago. You know, a miserable loss that ultimately was probably the difference between the Saints making the playoffs and not making the playoffs that year. Not being able to stop Saquon Barkley over the last 8 weeks, the Saints have given up almost 160 yards per game on the ground. That's last in the NFL. So stopping the run really terrifies the hell out of me. Being able to contain the Giants' edge rushers, if you can't do that, it's going to be a long day. If you can, I think Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara put up some nice numbers. Because again, they're obviously going to be without Michael Thomas. We're pretty sure, about 90% sure, they're going to be without Rashid Shaheed again. And I agree with what you said earlier. I wouldn't expect Taysom Hill, to be available either. So this is going to be an Olave Kamara Kamara game. Get the ball into their hands, see what they can do, as opposed to the Giants centering their offense around Saquon Barkley. Whichever defense can contain the star players better is the team that's going to win this game.
Mm.
It's too early in the week for me to make a prediction, but I'll be honest with you, I don't have a great feeling. And maybe that's because Dennis Allen teams just haven't won back-to-back games. They've only done so 3 times, under the 30 games under him. That's a mind-boggling statistic, isn't it? Right now, as we sit here on Tuesday night, I think you can. I say flip a coin. On paper, you look at the diversity of the talent, and you think, I can see why Vegas is favoring the Saints by 6 points. But then you look on the field and you see, you watch the Saints team week after week, and then you start to think, why would Vegas favor the Saints by 6 points against anybody? So, I don't get it. If the Saints come out listless again, they'll lose. I will say that much.
I'm curious to see who shows up Thursday in the injury report Thursday and Friday, because I think defensively, this has got to be a defense that wins the game for you. Force turnovers, pick off Scheinbach's boy, Shoeshine boy, pick him off several times. Don't let DeVito get comfortable. Don't let him run. Put the game on his arm, not his legs. Get Barkley out of the game early. I don't know how to do that other than the Saints have to be more successful in the red zone. I mean, honestly, that's what they have to do. They have to get in the red zone. They can put together good drives. That's what's frustrating about them. They can put together good drives, and they get in the red zone, and it's like, okay, first down didn't happen. We'll try to run on second down. That didn't happen. So now we got to do a desperation throw on third down, and here comes the blitz. We don't pick up the blitz, and now we're trying to kick a field goal that we may or may not make. And
Alan, you always see the exact moment when it's going to come to. It happens around the opponent's 30, 35-yard line. You see a false start penalty, or you see a screen pass to Kamara for a -9 yards. As soon as shit like that starts happening, you then, and I actually did it on one of the drives against Carolina on Sunday. It was the -9 yard pass to Kamara. I'm like, oh, this drive's over, and I literally went up, went and got a snack for my little boy, who'd been bugging me for, because he was hungry. When I got a snack because I knew that drive was over. That's what's predictable about this Saints team.
Exactly. So it's like you got to make sure they're calling good plays. They've got to get on first down. They got to get a lot of yards, positive yards on that play, where they're getting, 2nd and 8, whatever, that they're going to run the ball on second down. They rarely throw the ball on second down. It's like the Steelers in the 50s, I think they had a guy, his name was Diddle or something like that, a running back. The fans would all chant, "Hey, Diddle, Diddle, it's so-and-so up the middle," because they knew that was the third down play. And the fans knew it, and they'd start chanting it because that's exactly what they did. In fact, there's a joke about that the coach for the Steelers, he was under such pressure from the ownership, throw the ball on third down, that he told one of his offensive linemen jump off sides. So when they throw the pass on third down, which of course is wide open because the entire defense is like, you're going to throw the ball on third down, that they had to call the play back. And sure enough, he goes ahead and runs on third down again, and they punt. But that's when the Steelers were awful. But they've got to break tendencies, and they have to be more creative. And one of the things is, like Calvin said, they start using Jimmy more. They've got to use Jimmy more, especially on third down, because he can get separation, but you can't coach height. Put the ball up there, let Jimmy go fight for it. He'll get those contested catches. So just be creative. Don't go to something awful like a screen pass or some kind of swing pass where where Alvin's in the backfield with you, and you throw a 2-yard pass while a blitz is coming from that side. There was no shot. Okay, do you think if they win enough games that they'll keep Dennis Allen?
Yeah, Anna, and I understood why you asked that question. And yeah, sadly, I think it's a strong possibility. I believe that if this team makes the playoffs, which obviously they would do if they won the division, that they would probably keep Dennis Allen. I still believe Pete Carmichael, and most, if not all, of the offensive staff is gone. But I don't know that they make a move with Dennis Allen if they make the playoffs. That's not the MO for this organization, and I know that's probably why a lot of people don't want them to make the playoffs, because they don't want Dennis Allen back. So I understand that part, but again, if you want to win a championship, you can't do so without making the playoffs. You can't make the playoffs unless you win. And as much as we're down on Dennis Allen, myself included, I mean, I think the man is a great defensive coach, a horrendous head coach. But if they make the playoffs, even in this bad division, after the hole that they dug themselves, then they've showed a lot of character just to do it. So I think that would be a feather enough in Dennis Allen's cap that I'm sorry to say for you DA haters, if they make the playoffs, they will probably keep Dennis Allen.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think even if they finish better than 7-10, and that's just one win. That's all they got to do is win one game in the next 4. They finish better than 7-10. That they likely keep Dennis Allen, only because I think there's going to be about 10 coaching vacancies. We already have 2, but there'll be about 10 coaching vacancies this year, and I'm going to think that Loomis is going to look at this and go, that's a lot of coaches out there. Am I going to get an upgrade from Dennis Allen? And I know you guys are yelling at your TVs and stuff right now going, Forrest Gump would be an upgrade over Dennis Allen as a head coach. I know, and you're saying something with a lot more colorful metaphors. But from Loomis's standpoint, he's going to look at the team as a whole and go, did we maximize what we could do with this team? Did we show the resiliency? Did we show growth? Did we show improvement? To me, if you lose the 2 divisional games and probably the Rams game, that'll do it. If you lose this game and the Rams game badly, that'll do it. That's just that's the difference here. And even if you make the playoffs, I don't think Allen stands pat on the staff. I think the offensive staff goes. I think he makes some changes even on his defensive staff. I think he changed the defensive line coach, maybe defensive coordinator, because he's going to be dissatisfied with the way the team has regressed as in run defense, and you brought in players to come in. I think the offensive line coach goes, that kind of stuff. So regardless of what happens, how many games they win, I think there'll be changes within the staff. It's just the level of how many changes. Bob, I kept you really long tonight. Real quick, what do you have on the Bayou Blitz? I'm sorry.
More of the same. Talking NFC South, a little bit more of a preview about what to expect from the Giants, where New York's team strengths are, where their weaknesses are, things like that. We'll have a little bit of a glimpse into the initial injury report for the week, to the points that you were making earlier. So we'll know more where we stand with Cam and Taysom Hill. Those are the 2 big names to watch for obvious reasons. Just a lot of the same.
Wow, 20 years. I can't believe that. I know exactly where I was when that game happened. I was driving back from Lafayette, actually, that night, listening to it on the radio. And that means next week. If that's this week, then next week is the 20th anniversary of the River City Relay, because that was the following game, the Jacksonville game. Yeah. Because that was
Yeah,
what was so mind-boggling about, you think Dennis Allen drives you crazy? Aaron Brooks,
yeah.
well, he threw 5 touchdowns in that game, and then the next week he couldn't throw a touchdown pass to the very last play of the game. It's just one of those things.
I knew where I was for both of those games, but it was no surprise if you knew the Bob back in. I was in a bar each time. The first one was Buffalo Wild Wings on the cell phone call, and the second one was North Park Clubhouse. I think they went out of business when I got sober.
I was going to say, did they have chicken wire on the stage? Did they have to call a special bouncer in, like Dalton, to kind of straighten that place out after you left? One of those kind of places.
That was at Buffalo Wild Wings. It became a weekly ritual. We got kicked out and banned for a week every week. Now they only banned us for a week because we came back the following Sunday. The same kind of shit would happen. There was one exception. One of the years I broke one. I had a football helmet, mini football helmet, and I broke one of their big screen TVs. So I was banned until I was banned until I replaced the TV, which given my pay rate at the time, it took about a month before I was allowed to come back.
It was layaway monthly installment of $12 or something like that. This one's here is autographed by Ricky Jackson. I don't know if you can
nice.
See it or not. Yeah, this one I got from a vendor who got that for me. So I've only been kicked out of one. I've never been kicked out of a bar. I've only been kicked out of one place, one business before, and that was a buffet, all you can eat. Me and my college friends got kicked out because we ate too much food, and they're like, "You got to go. You go now. You here for an hour. You eat all the food. You go home." If you know that comedian. That's a great routine to go watch that one. We talk about that one all the time. The guy is the Chinese, big heavyset guy at the Chinese buffet. He said, "You big boy, you here for an hour. You go home now." It's hilarious. So anyway, Bob's going out to smoke. I'm going to bed. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. I'm trying to make these things as light as I can because, there's a lot to talk about and people are so negative right now. Join Bob in the Bayou Blitz. It's tomorrow night, right? Not Thursday night?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're going tomorrow. We're going to do Wednesday night this week.
Okay, so tomorrow night, join Bob in the Bayou Blitz. Join us next week to talk about this show, talk about the game that we just saw, the game coming up, who's getting fired. So in the meantime, have a good week. Thank you all for joining us and see you next time. Good night, everybody.